It's crazy until it's genius. They used to call me crazy, now they just call me. Your money right now, and it's just up to you of how valuable do you want to become.
And if you find yourself really stuck, it might be because you're thinking too small.
I didn't have a personal bank account because it had gone negative so often I got kicked out of it.
I had always had dreams.
I started thinking about this fund when I was 30.
So I dreamed of being a millionaire. I couldn't afford the Fast Company cover that I would be on 3 years later. What is worth doing excites you, makes you excited to wake up in the morning. If you truly want to make $1 million doing it sustainably, you have to be obsessed.
Oh. All you need is one person to believe in you. And that's what it was. I had been preparing for almost 4 years for this moment. And so I was like, it's on.
The being a millionaire part, for me, couldn't be enough. The goal of being a millionaire. So there had to be this vision that was way bigger than myself. So that's what I would say to that person, 34-year-old me, and I would say to anybody else who is just like, I don't know how to get out of bed, is if you feel that way, it's most likely because you've made it about yourself or you made it about your very specific current circumstances. To me, in that moment, they were not, I want to almost say they weren't real. I was like delusional on purpose. And it was because the end game or the goal, the North Star, was about how many people can I positively affect? What would happen if a backstage capital existed where in venture capital, less than 10% of all venture funding goes to women, people of color, and LGBTQ founders, where white men make up only a third of the country. They get 90% of the funding. If I can make backstage capital happen, how many people would be positively affected? It didn't always start there. It wasn't always that. It was actually, to be honest with you, I did start with, I want to raise $1 million for my company. And in doing the research for that is when I learned that statistic that changed my life. Catherine Finney, her team, put that out years ago. And I learned that statistic and I said, wait a minute, everything I've been thinking is wrong. I don't need to worry about me getting $1 million, where that might take me. I could probably make it work. I'll figure out a way to make that $1 million. But I need to make that $1 million for us. And so because I had that while I'm sleeping on the floor, and anytime I talk about it, by the way, I can feel it and see it. I feel the floor. I have my jeans rolled up as a pillow, no covers. I have my suitcase right in front of my face so I don't have to see people walking by. And there's, lights are blaring. There's never any rest. And I don't think I would have made it several days, several weeks of that if I wasn't thinking about this bigger picture. So I think that's where you have to start. And if you find yourself really stuck, it might be because you're thinking too small. I didn't know about the Silicon Valley place.
Yeah.
When I discovered that when I was 31-ish, I think that's why everything else started to make sense. Everything else I had done started to make sense because I had always been this weirdo who was doing these things and had no safety net, but was always making people excited and bringing people together. I had so many couples who found each other in my blog, who got married. I have all sorts of things, but it was never a great business model, none of it. And when I discovered Silicon Valley, I thought, oh, you can partner with people who get that part. You can be, I guess, I don't want to call myself a visionary, but you can have those visionary tendencies and not have to do everything and figure everything out. And so many people knew this before, and I just didn't know it. So once I figured that out, that is when all of the things that I had done in the past, from the time I was selling candy in the 3rd grade to working on major arena tours that I got myself to, all of those things and all of the heartache in between, all the terrible times in between, it all made sense because I thought, this is it. This is the answer. I can I can find my team here, my tribe here, and work on one singular focused mission and put all of my energy into having that backed. And once I decided, okay, I want to have a venture-backed company, that's when I started doing all this research.
Go back into the research phase, just like you did with the band stuff.
Absolutely. I started doing research. I wanted to know what I was getting myself into when I walked into these rooms. So I never set out to become a venture capitalist. I just wanted to know how they thought. I wanted to know what they did. I wanted to know everything that they, as much as I could, about what they did so that we would be on par with each other in the room. And for me, it was, again, an exercise and a curiosity that I was very excited about.
Didn't know how we were going to pay day to day. Both of us were in a really bad state financially. I didn't have a personal bank account because it had gone negative so often that I got kicked out of it. We would get excited on Tuesdays because they would have free chili or free sandwiches at the hotel in the lobby. And we knew, we're going to have food that day. I was almost going to say real. We don't even know if it was real. I don't know what it was. All that was happening. But I was also talking to people on the phone and meeting people in person who I could meet in person at the time and talking about $1 million fund. And I had a pitch deck and I was circulating it and I was talking to founders and I was helping them with their problems. And to me, it made all the sense in the world because I could see the future. I could see around corners. I could see what the world was going to look like in the future because I had been there. Right? We're creating the future. But every once in a while, at the toughest times, I would stop and say, I need to be intellectually honest with myself. Is this crazy? And I never got to the point where the answer was yes. And it might even have been yes, but. However, we're still going to go because, as many people have said it better than I have, it's crazy until it's genius. I say they used to call me crazy, now they just call me.
I talk about authenticity very often in the book, and it's probably the most important part of this because I mentioned that I've raised millions of dollars. I've generated millions of dollars in revenue, which I think is very important to remember. I don't think it's talked about enough. I've generated millions of dollars in revenue. I have invested in more than 100 companies, all in the last 4.5 years. And I have done so by the 4 things I've mentioned, and also by being myself and while being myself. And I have to tell you, there's a sweet satisfaction to that, to waking up every day and knowing that I don't have to put on any airs. I don't have to pretend with anybody. What you see is what you get. And it's I wouldn't have it any other way. And it also proves that if someone with no college education, no financial background, no connections in Silicon Valley, but all the authenticity in the world and all the sincerity in the world and the execution in the world can make this happen in less than 5 years, then you certainly can make something happen in what you want to do. And so that is being yourself. And so I'll leave you with this. What I say is, and I hope you hear this if you take nothing else away, is be yourself so that the people looking for you can find you. Be yourself so that the people looking for you can find you. There's someone right now who's looking for you. They won't be able to see you if you hide behind a costume. And that's where I'll leave it. I hope you check out It's About Damn Time, How to Turn Being Underestimated into Your Greatest Advantage.
I had always had dreams. So I dreamed of being a millionaire. I dreamed of going on tour and working on these tours, which I ended up doing quite a bit of musicians. I dreamed of it. That was me chasing it, running after it. This called to me. I've said that publicly. This called to me. This was a calling. And I don't speak like that normally. I think it's very, a little high and mighty, but it was. I was not sitting around saying, let me go find this. It came to me. And so if you are someone where we've just said this to you and you're like, okay, I have to wait for my calling for it to be real. What do I do in the meantime? Build skills. That's what you do in the meantime. Build skills, stack your skills so that you're ready, like you said, when the phone rings, the proverbial phone.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do that, then you're wasting time. Thankfully, I was doing that without even realizing that, knowing that that was what I was supposed to do. So I was, as broke as I was, I couldn't afford most books. I couldn't afford the Fast Company cover that I would be on 3 years later, right? I loved Fast Company. I would go to the airport, I would read it. I would be at the airport and read it, but I could not afford it. It was $8, $7.99. I couldn't afford it. Then I was on the cover of it in 2018. But each day I woke up from 2013 to mid 2013 to mid 2015. And this was a really tough time for me. And I said, the one thing you can't control if you're going to eat today, if you're going to make any money, if you're going to raise any money, if you're going to get a yes, but you can control how much you learn today. I had to learn something every single day. So when I did get that first check in September of 2015, I was ready. I didn't have to go out and celebrate. I didn't do any of that. I was ready. I was like, okay, now I have some companies to invest in because I already know who I want to invest in.
After just years, I started thinking about this fund when I was 30. I will be 40 this year. And every day since I started thinking about it, I've been gaining information. I've been talking to people. I've been researching. I've been reading, been listening. I've been observing, all of that. And when you have that much information in your head and you've been around that many people in a space, that's where a lot of the confidence comes from. And so I just recommend, if someone feels like really like they don't know, if they just feel really shaky, start with learning about what you want to be an expert on. And I promise you, like the first day of it, you'll feel a little bit more confident, and then a little bit more, and just start stacking on it. The second part of it is the imposter syndrome myth that I kind of try to bust in the book, which is a lot of underestimated people, especially that I've seen, feel like they think they have imposter syndrome because that's the phrase that has been used by others. But I believe a lot of imposter syndrome is sort of kind of a gaslighting of us, because like Michelle, like I mentioned in the conversation, like Michelle Obama, who we all look up to and though as a confident woman, as a bold woman, as an intelligent woman, caring person, she would go into these rooms, and maybe at the beginning, she talks a lot about at the beginning, she was a little bit intimidated, but she spent some time with the people in the rooms who had gotten into the rooms, and she's like, wait a minute, a lot of this, I outdo them. I am smarter than them in this. I know I am more expert in this, we'll say, rather than smarter. I am more expert in this. I am willing to do more. I have a better work ethic. I am this, and that. So there are ways we can start listing things off that you already have, that because you may not have been around others in your space, or too many others, or because they may have been really good at gaslighting you and making you believe that you aren't as good, you start to feel that.
Let's be really honest. Let's be super honest here. If my book could make everybody a millionaire, I would be a billionaire. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would just be over, said and done. There's only a certain percentage of people who will get the book, even after they hear this today. Mm-hmm. So if you get the book after you hear this today, you're in a certain tier, right? Mm-hmm. There are only a certain number of people who get the book who will actually read it or listen to it in its entirety. Uh-huh. Of that percentage, which is already dwindling down, there are very, very, very few people who will implement and execute on what I teach. You know that with courses and with books and with all the things, there are only, and see, this I have observed for years. It has not changed. It is tried and true. And that is the difference. That's why someone can say,
I was about to ask you that.
Yeah, why isn't everybody a millionaire then if you
Yes.
got a book that tells you how to do it? Because of what I just said.
Yes.
Because there are people who just, and this is not I'm not judging actually. I know it sounds like I am. I'm not judging. I'm saying there are people who just simply knowing it's possible is worth enough for them. They can go with that. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to pick up the book, have it in my house. It's on the shelf. I'll glance over at it every once in a while. And that's enough for me. Then there are people who, by reading it and saying, somebody else can do this, I believe somebody else can do this, that's enough for them. And then there are people who have this hunger and this drive that they probably, like you may relate to this, they can't find too many other people who feel that way.
Yeah.
They feel a little bit outsidery. Like with you when you were a teacher, I bet you had all kinds of plans and ideas and your
Girl, when the kids went to sleep at nap time, I was reading books. I was writing it. I was like, yes, I had this fire burning. Yes.
That's fire, right? So if you're listening to this right now and you just heard $50 million and you're like, what? How? Why? When? It's because you simply went further than most people are willing to go. You simply stayed in it longer than most people are willing to do.
Where is the collection plate?
Of gatekeepers.
Yeah. So the people who are holding, I guess like the purse to this money that you want, like how did you get them to take you seriously, I think?
I think some of it was just by staying around. And because a lot of people feel like, oh, okay, people have jumped on a fad, or people have a chip on their shoulder, or people are this, or you know how they can be. There's always something. But I found that a few of our investors or key investors came in after like just seeing me going, like just keeping at it for years and saying, man, you're going to either do this or you're going to, I don't want to say die trying, but you're going to, you're going to either do this or whatever, because you're, I like that kind of, I think people react to that. And I think now there's always these pockets of time where you have to like say it. And then there's these wonderful pockets of time where it's just being shown. And that's what's happening right now. Our portfolio is showing out. They raised 50 million plus last year. They're booking deals. They're gaining customers. They're hitting their Series A. I get once every 2 or 3 weeks, I'll get an email that says, go collect your Series A. Your note has converted. They're doing it, and that's happening all around the ecosystem. It's not just our portfolio. And when that happens in our ecosystem, like when Delane raises however $30 million for Play Versus, when Jewel Burks stunts and does anything basically, right. That's good for us. All boats rise. So I think it's about not necessarily trying to convince gatekeepers. It's about like, you'll see if you can believe us or not, but you'll see eventually either way. It felt amazing and it felt right. I felt I wasn't partying or like jumping up and down. I was stoked, but I had been preparing for almost 4 years for this moment. And so I was like, it's on. So, and I got a plane ticket to LA where I had been sort of based for earlier in my life. And I got a co-working spot and we were on.
There's different versions of what you should do in this moment. Like if you got to eat, there's nothing wrong with being an Uber driver or a Lyft driver. There's nothing wrong with door dashing, make ends meet, or working the 9 to 5 or doing the corporate gig like you're doing. And over time, building up to something else, right? I don't want anybody to think that I think that you shouldn't, that you have to go all in all at once. That's another thing that's important. You want to have some combination of starting with what fulfills you. What is worth doing, excites you, makes you excited to wake up in the morning. Like every night when I go to sleep, I'm so excited to wake up the next morning. Like, I can't wait to wake up the next morning and think through more strategy. I go to sleep thinking through strategy. I dream of it. I wake up with an idea. I write the idea down, and then I go back into the cycle. That wasn't always the case because I hadn't found the thing. So it has to be something that you're just, to be honest with you, got to be obsessed with it. If you truly want to make $1 million doing it sustainably, and that's just your first $1 million, you have to be obsessed with it. So something that's you find be obsessed with, and that's where it goes back to, you probably already know it and you don't even realize it. Also has to be something that is, in my opinion, ethical, something that helps someone else, because again, that'll keep you going. That'll be the buoy, I think the word is buoy, that keeps you afloat when things are tough. Has to be something that makes money, and it has to be something that, I'm going to say this, it might come out the wrong way. It can't be something that you only sell to broke people. It has to be something like a lot of people I talk to, they have this idea like something fulfills them, but they're like, and I want, I'm going to be the cheapest version of it. And, I'm going to make it really accessible for so many people because I want people to come up. You make it really accessible to so many people and it's so cheap, it's not going to be sustainable in a good business model, and you won't be able to keep doing it, and therefore you won't help any of the people you want to help. So it has to be something that is actually valuable, something that's valuable to someone else, so valuable that they'll spend actual money, like real dollars. You want to kind of lock yourself in a room, go on a staycation, do what you got to do. Pen to paper. What's fulfilling to me? What's something that is helpful to others, valuable to others, ethical? What's something that has a higher price point ultimately, or a version of it has a higher price point that I can get to? Because you think about the Tesla model. They didn't start with something that cost like $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. They started with something that was so unattainable to make it possible for the more attainable. Truly, research and development is also truly studying. I'm going to ask you a question I think is going to prove this point. How many other people's YouTube channels do you study, if you had to guess?
Oh. You know what? It's hard for me to give an exact number because there's a few kind of core channels that I really study and like I'm aware of like everything they're posting.
Yep.
But then I use YouTube so much that I'm actually studying like even the smallest channels.
Yes. You're proving my point.
Yeah.
Do you know, you probably don't even realize this because it's just automatic to you. You're studying. Of course, I'm going to study the thing almost obsessively probably that I'm trying to excel in. Most people don't. Most people couldn't tell you their competition if their life depended on it. And I know this. Why? Because I get pitched every single day of my life by multiple people. And I ask that question often. Who's your biggest competition? We don't have any. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Because you're wrong.
Yeah.
Because the obsession is a lot of that is used for the research, and it doesn't stop at any point. It just gets you started, and you never stop researching. So you're learning about it. You're always leveling up, but you're figuring that part out to get you going. And you are going to start off, if we're talking about people who are just starting, you are going to start off with lower stakes, lower risk things, and just give it a try. Because if you can take on all of the risk for yourself, whereas if it doesn't work out, only thing that was hurt was maybe your ego, then you're rich. You know what I'm saying? Because what people try to do to compensate for not taking too much risk is that they try to go out and raise a bunch of money before they have anything, before they have product market fit, any idea that it's really a company. They depend on so many other people. But if you take on the risk of, the worst thing that can happen is that it'll feel bad. It's a little bit of time wasted, quote unquote, and it'll feel bad. You have so much leverage in doing that. I think Susan, and then later several people invested, but Mark Cuban came in and has invested $6 million of that $30 million.
into the fund. And he said the same thing. I didn't even have to say it to him. I said, why did you invest the money in the fund when you don't like investing in other people's funds? He said, you'll be in rooms I'll never be in. So you said it on my show, on my podcast. So that everybody here has a value. You are money. You're money right now, and it's just up to you of how valuable do you want to become? What do you want your net worth to be when it comes to the information that you have, the rooms you can get yourself into, and what you're willing to do ethically and sustainably and with kindness, but will go that extra mile? What are you willing to do?